bought this car late last year after my last vehicle had died. It was a 99. I got it very used. And it finally passed in 2017. It had worked very hard and had driven me across country. It's broken down a few times. I managed to bring it back from the dead once, but it was time to let it go. So I got a new vehicle, and I really, really wanted to take care of this car. It's also used, but it feels like new. It still has new car smell. It's super clean and polished, and it's got a lot of new features that were really exciting to me. With the great help of my parents. We bought it. I brought it home, had it inspected, went back to the dealership, got it double checked, brought it home again, and was very excited to drive it. I wasn't quite ready to drive it, but I was excited. I wasn't ready because I still wanted to hang my ornament in the review mirror and make sure all my mirrors were checked, and they were good. That was the first thing I did. And also, I had to get it over with the DMV and do all the paperwork and all that boring stuff. The title hadn't quite come in the mail yet. Still, the girlfriend proposed we go take a trip to a theme park, and she was excited to see the new vehicle too. So we thought, you know what? You've driven to the theme park the most, especially since my car didn't have great mileage. Now mine does, so I'll do this one. I'll drive. I didn't really want to go, and I really didn't want to drive, but I thought I should do my part and drive this one time. What's the worst that could happen? It wasn't the worst, but what happened was driving next to the carpool lane and the traffic that was thick but moving. She pointed out a cool feature. I wanted to show off the feature. I looked up and I hit someone. So, everyone was fine. Everyone was fine. And there was actually minimal damage to their car, and mine came out still drivable. I still drove it away, and it was just a pain. Spent the day at the theme park determined to salvage the day, and we were already halfway there. What else could I do? I wish I turned around and gone home, because driving it home was a nightmare. I did manage to get it home, and I managed to get it in the garage, and it's been sitting here ever since. It's been 5 months. 5 inexcusably long months. And because my older vehicle needed so many repairs, I didn't think collision insurance was worth it. If it gotten that bad of a wreck, it wouldn't be worth trying to salvage. So I didn't have that, and it didn't switch over when I got the new vehicle because of all those things I didn't do. What's the worst that could happen? What difference does a day make? All very valuable life lessons. It's so valuable. The number keeps rising every time I try to get an estimate for repairs. I had my insurance come out and do some appraising and estimates to let me know what it would take to get it repaired. And they even gave me some shops that had certain parts that I needed. But they missed the SRS system, which is the thing I actually pointed out to him, because the light went on and my seatbelt's locked up. Thankfully, the airbag did not deploy, but that whole system was triggered. And I come to find out eventually that I definitely should not have kept driving it, because anything could set off the airbag. And if that happens, then I'm in a world of hurt. It just gets way worse than it already is. But he didn't appraise it, and calling up mechanics, no one could give me an estimate. I made a lot of phone calls. I couldn't record myself making all these phone calls, so you get to hear me just talk about them instead, which is even less exciting. I finally had to call a friend of the family back home and be like, can you explain to me how much it may cost to replace this? And I started to understand why it was so confusing, because there's a lot of parts. Most of them are disposable. You don't really know what parts need to be replaced until you're actually in there. And just depending on what that all is, it varies greatly. So, for the benefit of anybody else who might have the same issue I did, the SRS system, um, supplemental restraint system, is made up of several different parts that all come from the command module, control module, which is like a computer system that works once. Like, it was explained to me, like, imagine your computer can only do one thing, and it can only do that one thing one time, and then after that it's done and you have to replace it. That honestly seems like a scam feature. Like, that is American quality right there, where you can only use it once. But that's what it is. So chances are you have to get that replaced. As much research as I've done into this stuff, I still get conflicting reports. But so the command module fires, and what it does is it sets off discharges all over the vehicle to lock up the seatbelt and deploy the airbag. And this stuff has to be like miniature explosions because it has to be faster than your reaction time. So essentially there's a charge in here, like a pin being released from a grenade popped springs and locked up the seatbelts to where now I can't use my seatbelt. This one over here somehow is retractable, but then again, I don't know if it'll ever lock up again. If God help me, I'm in another accident and it needs to be locked up. So those both have to be replaced, and depending on the kind of seatbelt, the buckle might have to be replaced, because we don't know how to make reusable buckles. I don't know. I don't know what all is involved with mechanics in this system. This is all very new to me. So the control module, the seat belts, the sensor itself, all the little parts, and depending on what kind of SRS system I've got, this all racks up, and it costs way more than I expected, because there's so much to do, and I guess digging it all out is going to be quite a bit of labor as well. I feel like half the repairs to my vehicle are just this one system. Anyway, I got a couple of different quotes from a couple of different mechanics. I asked friends of mine to recommend the mechanics that they know and trust and can afford. I got 5 or 6 different names. 5 said they could take care of it. 4 were actually willing to help me figure out how much it would cost. 3 gave me reliable numbers. And I just kind of had to pick one. So I called up the mechanic and said, this is my situation. Also, there's these other 2 things, my radiator and my condenser, because it's not holding coolant. It was all just smushed just enough to where it doesn't hold any fluid. So in order for me to drive this vehicle at all, I have to replace the SRS system, the radiator, and the condenser. And just to keep things fun and flirty, I discovered sitting down here, as long as this vehicle has, the battery died, so I gotta get that jumped. But after we fix the SRS system, because I don't want the airbag to go off, but I don't know if you can operate the SRS with a dead battery, so we'll see what happens. I called him the mechanic, said this is what I need done, and he kind of was like, oh, all right, well, we got to take a look at it, bring it on in. And the plan was, I'm going to use my AAA towing miles to tow it from mechanic to mechanic, going down my list of who seems like the best fit for my situation, until one of them gives me an offer that I can afford. And that's just to get it driving again. We're not even going to get into the body work yet. That's a whole nother thing. So he said, well, I can't look at it today, bring it on Monday. So that's today. Today is Monday. I called up AAA told them my situation, that it needs a jump and a tow. I'm in a garage. Flatbed probably won't do, and they still sent a flatbed. The driver pulled up and immediately recognized you cannot get the vehicle, the flatbed tow truck, down to where mine is. And I was like, yeah, I told him I was afraid of that. I guess AAA's idea was that I would be able to jump the vehicle, drive it out, and then get it on top of the flatbed. But I explained to the tow operator that I really don't want to jump the car and drive it because of the airbag thing. And he totally agreed that if that happened, if the airbag was set off because we're jumping the car and then driving it, that the car would then be totaled, my face would get smashed in, and it just would not be worth it. So he scheduled another appointment for a different tow later, but that's a specialty tow truck that I guess isn't in big demand anymore. So the guy who operates that won't be available until 3 o'clock. So 3 o'clock, the specialty tow truck becomes available. You should arrive here around 3:20. Hopefully I'll be able to keep the garage door open at that time, because that's a thing I completely forgot about. Getting the vehicle out of the garage requires a garage door opener. If I can manage to pull that off, he should be able to have it hooked up by 3:10, drive it to the mechanic who drops it off around 4. It's an hour till close, so they'll just look at it and go, yeah, this is going to be a lot of work. It's going to cost you. And then they can send me on my way so I can go do my day job while they do their diagnostic. I will wallow in misery the entire shift until I go home at night and crash. Get up the next morning, continue with the day job. Hopefully I'll have some word back by the mechanic on how the state of the vehicle is and can actually start fixing it. And maybe if I'm very lucky, I will afford it and I can start driving my car. I've barely driven this vehicle. Hopefully I can start driving it again and I can move on with my life.